This video is sponsored by Doomlings Legends of Enderas. You know what I didn't know I wanted from a game was a game that's both competitive and cooperative that can be played solo, yet has elements of a fantasy medieval skirmish game that's also cops and robbers in Guess Who. That was a game I didn't know existed until now. Traitors Toll. I'm Peachy, and this is Peachy Tips. So Peachy, what is Traitors Toll? Well, Traitors Toll is a skirmish game in which you take control of a guard captain and his squad, and you either play solo or competitively and cooperatively with your friends. You have the same goals, the same ambitions, that is to arrest as many suspects as you can, help as many civilians as possible, as well as other little tasks like maybe putting out a fire, all the while gaining glory and recognition from your superiors. Sounds fun. And it is. So the first thing I'm going to look at is making your guard squad. Pretty straightforward as things go. You just need a handful of guards. You can make them up however you want to, paint them up however you want to, but it's nice to have a nice mix of weapons in there. So you will need a guard captain. Now every model costs a certain amount of points or gold coins. And depending on the size of the game and how many players there will be restrictions on how many gold points you can have for each guard squad. So if you're on your own, you're playing solo, you get like 45 gold coins worth. So you can be kitted out with more people and more gear. But if there's like 2 players or 3 players, then that's reduced down to like 30 or so. So it will affect the amount of actual guards you can field in the game, depending on how many other buds you've got playing with you. Now, it is recommended you have a handful of missile troops, so usually 2 or less if you're doing it with a group of mates. If you're playing on your own, you can have up to 4 if you want to. What you define as a missile weapon is entirely up to you. Crossbow, bow, sling, stones, I don't know. I mean, there's rules in the book that tell you what the weapons are, and you can change the names if you want that to be slightly different. So if you want a handgun, let's say you're doing like a Warhammer themed one, then you can stick a handgun in there. It's entirely up to you. But yes, you get to equip your guards how you want, and there's a whole selection of weapons, but it's recommended you have a few like guys with hands free, so you can do some arrests or perform some interactions. It's not necessary, but it's handy to have hands free. Ha, see what you did there, Peach. Nice. Now each guard has a points cost assigned to them. Captains obviously cost more, and then depending if you upgrade them with stuff, that obviously costs a little bit more as well. So you can have missile troops, you can have things mounted, you can get guard dogs or guard geese or whatever animal you want to have. It's entirely up to you how you fit it out, as long as you don't exceed that points cost or gold coin cost. What I do like as well is every stat line for the guards is slightly different, so it makes them feel a little more unique as characters. So some might be a bit more stronger, some might be a bit more agile, so you might want to reflect that in your build as well, or build your models and then go, that card looks relevant. It really doesn't matter which way you do it. The fun thing is build up some guards, paint them up, have some fun, and then go and arrest some civilians, or not, and rescue civilians, I guess, and guide them down the straight and narrow. That's probably more appropriate, Peach. Don't just keep arresting everybody. What's that? Your trout's out of date. I'm gonna arrest you. What's that? Your cabbage smells weird. Gonna arrest you. Yeah, might not get a lot of good credit from the civilians. Speaking of civilians, let's talk about them. You're gonna need a lot of civilians. Now, Traitors Toll comes with a set of guards that you can build, and also a set of plastic civilians, or from Wargames Atlantic. They're all interchangeable with each other, and if you have the chivalric stuff, they're also interchangeable with that, so you've got even more options. In fact, most of the Wargames Atlantic kits are quite interchangeable with each other anyway. But the sets for Traitors Toll has civilians and guards, but you can mix and match them. And you get a lot of choice, especially when it comes to making like random trades and professions. So whether that's performers, miners, blacksmiths, I don't know, some kind of food vendor, maybe a weird performing magician. There's loads of things on the sprue that allow you to make whatever the hell you want, which is actually kind of useful and key when it comes to making civilians, because you want a nice mix, because you do have this thing called an identity card where certain parts of the scenario or the game will mean you have to like look and I try and identify a civilian. So you have to make a dice roll, and then you're like, oh, that's the civilian I'm going to move because he's not wearing shoes. I'm going to move that one. Also comes in handy later on when you're trying to identify suspects as well, because one of these civilians could be your suspects. So maybe make a few shifty looking ones as well, because yeah, we like shifty looking characters in towns, because they obviously clearly are the baddies and need to be arrested by the guards. I mean, a butcher doesn't look too much of a problem. Guy with a face mask on, with a hood, with a little knife running around, definitely got form. That's what I think. The other cool thing as well is your civilians don't all have to be unarmed and part of a trade or some kind of performer. You can actually just throw in like random like mercenaries or foot knights. Maybe it's a hedge knight on his way, or maybe a knight who's on his journey to like some other part of the country, or this, that and the other. And it's entirely up to you how you fit these civilians out, as long as you know what are your guards and what are your population for the game itself. So I have quite a few random, certainly from Frostgrave and other games, just random assortment of like just dudes and dudettes that are all built in different ways. So I could use a lot of these as my civilians. I mean, after all, it is meant to be like a bustling marketplace or street or side street or whatever of this fictional place called Traitors Toll, which I'll come to in a moment. So having a nice representation of a different mix of stuff, and also other races as well. You don't just have to keep it to humans. You can have like dwarves in there, you can have elves in there. If you're going down the route of like doing an Elder Scrolls themed version like I'm going to do, then you might want some Khajiits, some Orcs, some Argonians, some Dunmer and all that lot. So Traitors Toll is a made up place in a very generic sort of setting. Graham Davey, who wrote this, he's done 0200 Hours, if you're familiar with that, or Test of Honor. Also used to work for Workshop many years ago, worked with Graham before. Got to play a game with him, we'll talk about that in a bit. But he generically made the background particularly vague. The general concept is it was a pass that was held by robbers, and they would charge people to use said pass, and then over the years it's become like a bustling metropolis of trade, and often people leave poorer than they have arrived, and you control the guards in that. But the setting being so vague and generic, you could use that in any game system really. If you wanted to do like, I want to do Traitors Toll but make it Warhammer, and I'm going to say this is Altdorf or this is Talabheim or something like that, you could use the mechanics, which are perfect, they fit for anything, and then just make a nice cool Traitors Toll game that's Warhammer themed. Or you could do an Elder Scrolls one. Maybe this is the town of Anvil, instead of it being like in the middle of a pass, it's a bustling port city or something like that. So you could literally tinker and tweak this to work with the games that you already have. So if you're already deep into like Frostgrave lore, or maybe you really like The Witcher or Game of Thrones, you can make this game work for those settings, especially if you've got all the models painted. It's even better, right? So that's what I really like about Traitors Toll. Purposely made vague, but also has its own little background if you want to lean into that, which I think is really cool. Now, the game itself is played across several turns. There's a whole bunch of scenarios. Each of those scenarios have their own set of rules and objectives to fulfill, but you have things called plot cards, and they're revealed during the game, and different scenarios have different amounts. And the idea of the plot cards is that gives you something to achieve during your turns in your game, but also it rewards you as the player if you succeed in that plot, but also has a massive negative impact to you and all the guards if you fail in that plot. Now, the plot cards themselves give you a particular task to perform, and this could be arrest a suspect, it could be a pickpocket, it could be a cut purse, there could be a fire happening somewhere in the area that you're in. So obviously you need to go and put that fire out, or it could be to escort a noble who's lost. And if you don't get there in time, he might find himself in a worse part of town, which isn't ideal, and that would not look good in the eyes of your superiors. In fact, they will probably not be very happy because it might be a cousin. Now, when you do achieve a plot, you also get rewards, you get upgrades. Those rewards come in the form of gold coins, which you then use to act as victory points. But also, if you collect enough, you can also use them as effects in the game as well, which I think is really cunning. So as you accrue them, you might have like 5 gold coins and your opponents all have 1 each or something like that. You're like, you know what, I might upgrade or use some of these coins to give a benefit or an effect to this guard or whatever. And they're all in the rules. They all have different effects depending on what you want to do with them. But yes, you can use those coins to help you out in the game as well, which I think is quite a smart little mechanic. But that does mean you have less victory points when it comes to the end of the game. So you got to think wise about how you spend your coins if you do want to spend them. But also, each plot card has a discontent rating on it as well. Discontent, you accrue that during the game. Now, the idea is not to use brute force to arrest people. You don't just turn up, there's a cut purse, you maybe just taking like 10 gold coins or 5 silver coins off an old lady or something like that. Bludgeon them to the ground before you even had a chance to arrest them does not look good and give confidence to the civilians around you. So that will build discontent, and people might not want to help you out as a guard. So you've got to be quite clever about how you go about arresting these suspects. Now, if they attack you back, it's fair game after that. If they've attacked you, you can bludgeon them to death. And I guess the civilians are okay with that, because it's like, yeah, well, he did try to stab the guard, so it's okay. But you will accrue general discontent, and that is removed as you achieve these plots, which goes against the gold coins you accrue. So let's say at the end of the game, you've got like 5 gold coins, but there's 5 discontent markers still in play. That means you don't get any victory points, and it's not worked out very well. So all the discontent, remove the gold coins from your victory point total at the end. You also get personal ones as well. So if your guards have been a little bit heavy-handed with a few civilians, then they will accrue some personal discontent, which is also added to the total at the end. Also, the other thing with discontent as well is the more you have, whether that's in general or personal, will affect on whether the civilians around you will want to help you, because they can help you. If you're arresting someone or trying to apprehend someone, they can help apprehend. If there's a fire, they can also help put the fire out. If you want to trade because maybe you've earned some gold coins and there's like a guy selling magic potions, you might want to buy one of those magic potions to help you out during the game. But yes, if you accrue too much discontent by the end of the game, it's going to be all doom and gloom for your guard captain and his crew. Speaking of doom and gloom, let's quickly hear from today's sponsor, Doomlings Legends of Enderas. Enderas. Doomlings Legends of Enderas is a brand new expansion for the game Doomlings. There's also 120 new unique cards in the Legends of Enderas expansion. That's nearly as many cards as there are in the Doomlings base game. And that was a lot, I can tell you. The return of the beloved card types, Dynolings, Techlings, and Mythlings all sound very cool. These were mini expansion types during the initial first launch, so it's nice to see them back again. The treasures introduce new mechanics which add a whole new layer of strategic depth to the game. And as a big fan of art, the art in Doomlings is great. It's hard to pick a favourite, to be honest, as they're all pretty awesome. But I do like the shiny holofoil versions of the art as well. Oh, which one do I like? Oh, they're all pretty cool. It's hard to, don't make me pick. It's like picking a favourite child. It's not on. You can get alternative art cards from these holofoils and even rare, never before seen characters, which is pretty cool as well. This new expansion is out now and only available on doomlings.com. So, looking for more holofoils? Check out the Legends of Enderas gold packs, also now available on Doomlings.com as well. I've got mine. I've opened them up. They're pretty super shiny rare. I like watching them flicker in the light. It looks pretty cool. Doomlings. Check it out. Well, that may be the end of the universe in that card game, but let's return to Traitors Toll and try and bring some stability to this town square. Now, each game turn is done through a series of different activations. You will need a bunch of tokens which come with the game. These represent different things that happen during that turn. So you'll need a bunch of guard activation tokens. This represents your guards getting to activate. You'll need 1 for each guard, 2 if you've got a captain, because your captain can do extra stuff like get another guy to activate. Your guards can only activate once, except with the aid of a guard captain. So you need a bunch of those. So let's say I've got 5 guards and a captain. I'll get 5 tokens for the 5 guards and then 2 for the guard captains. That's 7 in total that get put into a blind bag. Then usually need 2 plot tokens, so they go in there as well. You'll need a couple of suspect tokens. They'll go in there depending on how many suspects there might be. And then you'll need some time tokens. Now these are representative of the passage of time. Usually when you pick the first 2, that you get to activate some civilians and they get to do a thing. The last one you pull out ends that game round. So even if all your guards haven't finished or the suspects haven't finished, the game round ends and then you start a new round, which sometimes can be a bit of a negative, but actually if the suspects haven't had time to go, it gives you more chance for your guards to do stuff and get to them before they get a chance to run off or do the thing that they're doing. So actually it works quite well. There's also a wheel token. You can add that if you want to. And then if there's carts or stuff on the table, you can use that to move a cart, which just adds a little bit of like, I don't know, extra narrative to the story that's going off. There's just like a cart trundling through the town square or whatever, and it's slowly but surely making its way across. And that could actually be part of a scenario where you're escorting a caravan or something like that. Also in Traitors Toll, you have some very unique dice. These all have different symbols on it. There's a little foot symbol. This is representative if you roll one of those and you're doing a move action. You can get an extra inch with the movement, which is really, really good. If you get a coin, they're useful because you get coin effects, so you can use those to do an effect in the game. And then you also have like ones with daggers or swords on it. Now you have a whole bunch of abilities in the game. These all have different effects, which I'll come to in a moment. But to succeed in an ability score, you need to have like 3 daggers. There's one that has like 3 on it, then there's a couple that have 2 and a couple that have 1. And then obviously if you don't get enough, you don't succeed. So if you're trying to apprehend, let's say, a suspect and you're using agility to maybe like put them to the floor and arrest them, then you'll need to score 3 swords to do it. But obviously the suspects can try and dodge, and they'll need to at least equal or beat the score that you've rolled. So it is a little bit of a game of cat and mouse sometimes when you're trying to arrest people. They might squirm out and get away, but if you've got other guards around, you can add to that and they can help out, which is always useful. Having more guards around means more dice in the dice pool, means you get to roll more, and there's more chance of getting more swords and less chance of the little suspects getting away. And that helps, like I said, with the discontent with civilians, because they can also help apprehend said little nuisances. So yes, trying to get on the side of the local population is key, I think, in this game. Now, talking to the ability scores, every character has a set of abilities, and these, I'll come to these in a moment. What I really like about the guards is when you get the guard cards, they're all slightly different. They're not the same stat line. I initially, when I looked at it, I was like, they're all the same stat line. You get a captain, you get like a bunch of guards, but each guard is slightly different. And as I mentioned at the start, you can build some of your models to represent this. So maybe you've got one that's more agile, one that's more burly or strong or whatever. And I really, really like that. It adds a little bit of extra flavor because one of your guards might be faster, one of them might be a little bit more intelligent or good at like getting the crowd to help out and stuff like that. So it's quite nice to have a nice mix, and it's not all the same stat line, because that can be quite boring actually, having the same stat line. You can also amend these with upgrades, and you can also give your characters personalities as well, like different. You can only have a certain amount of personalities, so it could be clumsy, it could be bullish, it could be thuggish or something lithe. Maybe they're even more agile than the original sort of stat line that they might have. Some of these personality cards will give you a bonus but also a negative in another stat line, which I kind of like. So the stats are as follows. So the first stat is aim. So this is accuracy when trying to strike an enemy, as well as using aimed weaponry when you're trying to shoot them as well. Next you have agility. This is used to duck and dodge against enemy attacks, but also run fast while trying to seize another character or figure. Then you have brawn. This is physical strength, toughness and stamina, important in most combat situations. Next up is wits. This is awareness of your surroundings, allowing you to easily spot suspects from a distance, and then use your charisma and charm to win over the civilians to get them to help you out if you need to. Then you have the heart, brave in the face of danger, and ability to command others, and willpower to resist coercion or magical enchantments. Ooh. Also, when you pull out your plot cards, suspects will also have their own stat line, and this will vary, again, depending on the suspect. So you might want to pick which kind of guard might want to challenge them and take them down, because some of them might be a little bit better than others. Some of them might be a little bit more stabby or punchy. You just have to be a little bit mindful about who you use. Maybe live Lizzie against like big burly Bill might not be a great idea, because you might just get punched to the ground, and that's not ideal when you're trying to arrest suspects. Not ideal at all. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was privileged and lucky to play a game at Wargames Illustrated. They wanted to do a battle report on Traitors Toll, and they asked me to come along because they knew I was eager to play. And they said, do you want to play a game with Graham Davey, the guy who wrote the rules? I was like, yes, please. I'd love to play a game against Graham Davey. Not played a game with Graham Davey for years. Probably like 2012 was the last time I may have played a game with Graham. It might have been a Lord of the Rings themed game. We did a fair few battle reports during that period. It was a long time ago, long time ago, and it was really nice. And he basically showed us the ropes on how the game works. There was myself, Charlie, and Graham that were playing the guards, and then James was basically writing up the battle report, taking all the notes, ready for the article. So yes, that will come out as a magazine fairly soonish. I will put like a little link to their webpage so you can see when it's out if you are interested in buying it and reading the battle report of Traitors Toll. It was a lot of fun. I got to experience the game firsthand. Obviously asked lots of questions about the game itself. I mean, I referred to it as Guess Who meets Cops and Robbers, and Graham didn't disagree with that, but it's a lot more than just that. I mean, it is a skirmish game. You are working together, but you are working against each other because you are trying to basically get the glory for your patron. And that's the other thing as well, is like in the book you have like different lords and ladies, and that's representative, maybe the colour schemes in the book certainly for the guards, but you can do what you want and you can make up your own names and stuff, but you are kind of working for that lord or lady that kind of sponsors your guards to keep peace and security in the town. I really like the fact that Sarissa Precision do a whole bunch of scenery as well. It's called Tollinchester. I've got a couple of those. I need to build some more up. That adds, they're pre-coloured, so you don't even need to paint them. So if you're like not got much time and you want to get stuff on the tabletop, there's loads. I also got a bunch of Mantic terrain crate as well, because they've got loads of like debris town square stuff, which is really, really good. So there's carts, there's market stalls, just boxes and crates. So you could easily fill out your town squares with some of the terrain from Sarissa Precision, as well as a load of stuff from the terrain crate from Mantic. Now, when it comes to painting the guards, that's good fun because you only need 6. You don't have to paint loads and loads and loads. So it's up to, I mean, I'm not going to go into a paint guide on painting the guards because that's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I've got a few that I've done, and I'll do like a little showcase of those as I'm talking now about, like, because I did some Cyrodiil ones for like last week. I talked about a video about doing like Elder Scrolls and being into Oblivion, so I've done some guards for that. I've got some guards from when I did Frostgrave. I've also done some specific ones for this, so using the Traitors Toll sets. Also had some Frostgrave Knights which I made for Traitors Toll to use in this, and they're basically Charlie's little squad of guards. He likes green. It's kind of like a jade green, I suppose, but that's gonna be his guards. I've done the red ones. I've got some more on the go. Going for like primary colours here as well, so red, blue, yellow, maybe a bit of green, maybe a yellow and black. I've got another set on the go at the moment which look a little bit more Avalanche, so yellow and blacks. I've used the Conquistador heads from Wargames Atlantic on those as well, because I stole that idea off Graham because I was looking at his models and he had done that. I was like, that's very smart, I very like that. So yeah, from a guard point of view, I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to give you some visuals of what you can do if you want to. The book's full of it. Civilians, however, they're the tricky ones. Now, I wouldn't say it's the hardest thing in the world to paint, but you do need a fair few. Now, if you've got like 10 armed looking dudes you can use as civilians, that's half of them done, because you need about 20 plus civilians to make the game feel a little bit more lived in. Now, during the game, you will need to identify civilians. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. There is, in the plot cards, you might have to identify a civilian, and sometimes if like you've picked up a lost noble, it will say look for someone that has jewelry, or look for someone in rich looking clothing. So you need to look at your civilians and find someone that fits that bill a bit. So if you got someone with a crown and a nice looking flamboyant outfit, that might be the lost noble, and that becomes the suspect or the person you're trying to help out in that particular round. During the time tokens, if you pull out a time token, that's the Passage of Time, you get to move civilians, and you have an identity card. And what that identity card is, it gives you 6 tables, so you roll a d6. That gives you your first table, so it could be like a trade or a performer, and then you roll again, and it gives you an idea of what that performer is equipped with or looks like. And then you go around looking at your civilians trying to find that. Sometimes if you can't find that particular one, it does say just pick any kind of performer. But that's kind of the key. You do want at least a few of these different types of categories and groups. You want something that looks like they're armed. You want something that looks a little bit magical. You want something that looks like a tradesman or a blacksmith or something like that. However, what I'm going to do now is quickly cover a couple of little basics or hacks for painting civilians. Now, I like to use sprays where I can to speed the process along. Normally, if I'm not sure about a colour, I'll spray stuff grey, and I can go lighter or darker if I need to. With the civilians, I've got 2 simple ways of doing it, a dark tone or a light tone. So I could use like a brown undercoat or a black undercoat. That depends what kind of colour leather I want, and I'll just dry brush up lighter greys or lighter browns. If you don't have a brown undercoat, spray it black, dry brush it brown, and then you can work on from there. That, like I say, acts as your levers, like your belts, your pouches and your boots, and then you can just pick out the tunic and the face and the hands if you need to. Or the other option is to use like a light undercoat like I've used here. But this is like an off-white, so like a beige colour. You could just use white, it's entirely up to you. With the beige, I can like dry brush a bit lighter, and then that gives me like a little bit of a highlight on top of what I will get from the speed paints and contrasts and whatever. Now, speed paints and contrasts are really, really good because they kind of go in the recesses. They kind of give you a bit of a base coat, but as they dry, they pull away from the edges and give you a bit of a highlight as well. Now, I'm going to be using speed paints, Army Painting Paints. I'm sponsored by Army Paints. I'm part of the factory team. I don't hide that. I really rate their paints. I really like the triads that they do. Well, I say triads. There's hexads. I think that's the term me and Tom have been coining, or Tom's been coining, one of my patrons. But yes, I really rate the paints, and I'll use them in all my videos. If you don't want to use Army Painted Paints, don't. Use whatever colours that look similar. Use whatever speed paints or contrasts that you've got. This is just the paints I like to use because I rate them. So what I'm going to do now is jump into the first scheme, which is going to be using a light undercoat, so like an off-white, dry brush that up, and then just start applying some speed paints. I'm not going to use a million different colours. I'm just going to keep it quite simple, a palette of like a handful of colours, and then mix and match that between like different civilians. Because really, I just want to get them done quite quickly because I want quite a few on the board. But if you want to add more over time, you can. If you want to spend more time on your civilians, ignore this. This is for those that don't have much time. Time is a premium. It is our biggest resource. So if you only have like an hour or two in a week, this will be key for getting those things painted. But yes, without further ado, let's paint some civilians. So my first step is to heavily dry brush over that light spray with a little bit of a lighter tone, so like a off-white or something like that. I'm using Brain Matter Beige here. The main purpose of this is just to help out with those highlights later on, so there's less for me to do. Then I'm going to start with my first colour. It really doesn't matter what colours you use here. I'm just going to go for Cloudburst Blue, and I'm just going to paint on his trousers across a couple of other figures. I might do it on shirts, or I might do it on like robes or something like that. So really it's just picking a couple of colours and then just place them in different areas on different models. I opted to put these out as like trousers with wraps around it as well. I wasn't sure if they'll boots at first, so I just thought I'd put it on my legs as well. Then I'm going to get a lighter colour, so almost like an off-white shirt. Again, I can mix and match this between different models if I want to. I'm just going to place that on his shirt because it's kind of like a fishmonger, maybe a blacksmith, not decided yet. I also thought, you know what, actually I'll do it on the apron as well, because I was originally going to give it him like a leather apron, but it made sense. Then for another civilian option, you can go for some dark sackcloth kind of clothes. I've got like a homeless looking dude here, maybe a bit of a ne'er-do-well or a scavenger. So I'm just going to go for this brownish decay, which looks a bit like mouldy old sackcloth, which is perfect. And also, after I've applied it, I'm just going to get my brush and soak off any excess, just move it around so it's not just pulled in too much. And with that dry, where I need to, I can just tidy up a couple of mistakes here and there where I may have got that on some of his skin, because I don't want that on there when I come to applying the skin, which is what I'm doing here on this dude. So I'm just going to get some Crusader skin, apply it to the areas I want flesh. I can apply a second coat if I want it a bit darker, a bit more intense, but I quite like the pale look it's given me on this guy, so I'm just going to apply that all over the head. I could apply it all over the head if I really wanted to, but it just makes it easier later on when it comes to doing the hair. If it's just one colour, don't have to tidy up. Again, using the same colour on the homeless dude, or poor guy, or maybe he's not, maybe he's a wizard, don't know, can't judge. Maybe he likes to keep things simple. Trick as well with speed paints is have a fair amount on your brush and just let it pool in as well. Then for any leather on this guy, I'm going to go for hardened leather. I'm just going to pick out the belt and maybe his boots as well. In fact, I decided I'm going to do that over the areas I did blue for the trousers, or the straps or wraps, what they are. And I also then thinned it down and applied it to his apron as well, so it gave it a bit more of a yellowed sort of look. It's probably a dirty apron, he's probably not going to wash it right. Then I just wanted to pick out the beard, and because he's a greying old fella, I thought I'd use Gravelord Grey and then just apply that over. Again, I can do a second coat if I want it a little bit more neat or a little bit darker. Again, it's just a matter of work your way around. Try not to get it on the areas you've already done. Again, if you make mistakes here, you will need to tidy back up with that undercoat colour or whatever colour you've used. I'll just use Brain Matter Beige to do that, and then reapply the fleshes or whatever. I'm trying to go for a 5 o'clock shadow or a bit of a shorn haircut on his hair. Then for his ropes, I'm just going to use Satchel Brown. I could have gone lighter, but I decided I wanted it as like a really dirty piece of rope. And again, on the face, if I need like a little bit more punch here and there around the cheeks or like the hands, I can apply a second coat if I need to. On this guy, I'm just doing it sparingly here and there around joints and ankles and stuff. Same for the whatever profession this guy's going to be. Not quite sure yet. Not decided. Also decided I'll do a second coat on the beard and tash. And just for a little bit of punch, because I still want it to look a little bit greying as well, but not too much. And then it's just a matter of shading all over. Now the reason why I'm doing this, I'm only going to do it on the clothes and the beard. I'm not going to do it on his skin, because I quite like the skin on this guy as it is. So that's something you can bear in mind if you want to add a little bit of punch here and there. I do find after I've done like speed paints and whatever, if I do like a all over wash like this, it helps tie the colours together, gives them kind of a unified sort of finish as well. Especially if you thinned it down a bit like I'm doing on this apron. Alternatively as well, if you wanted to, you can just apply it all over the model like I'm doing here. I'm just going to do it on the skin as well, just give it a little bit of a different finish to the skin. So you could just do sections, or you can do the full thing. It's entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong way. Mix and match it if you really want to as well. And then for the apron, I think he is going to be the fishmonger, because I've got some fish on a platter somewhere. So he's just going to have like a bit of like grime and blood and guts and stuff on his apron. Maybe he's a butcher, maybe he's a murderer, we don't know. But he's got blood on his apron and it's dirty. Then for a little bit of filth on this guy, I'm just going to get some desert yellow and do a little dry brush. Mostly around the lower part of his robes, but it's helped pick out some of the rope as well and stab it around his feet so his feet look a bit dirty. The great thing about using speed paints as well is they've done a lot of the highlighting for me anyway, so this is just like a little bit of finish here and there, add a little bit of a brownness to his beard too. And if I do want to do any highlights, it's not really necessary for most of it. I'm just going to concentrate on the face. I'm just going to get some amber skin, just pick out the extremities here and there, cheeks, nose, brows, that kind of thing. Knuckles, always pick out the knuckles as well. Just little things, just draw your eye in really, nothing particularly taxing. Depends on your skill set, I guess. If you don't like fine detail, completely ignore this step. So one approach on these dark tones is to heavily dry brush over with a brown. So I'm just going to get bootstrap brown here and just dry brush. What this is going to do is it's going to help pick out any leather details. Now this one doesn't have lots of boots and belts, but it's really good for the apron. Also use it for the top half as well, like probably on a petticoat. So it's entirely up to you how you want to do this. So if you've got like lots of with belts and pouches and boots and stuff, it's perfect for that. So it's just a heavy dry brush of brown. Alternatively, if you want like dark leathers like black or like really, really dark greys, then get something like strap grey and heavily dry brush this over a black undercoat. Again, it's just going to give it a slightly off black tone, which is fine. But then if you want a bit of a highlight, you can move to the next step like I'm doing here and get some like uniform grey and just do a slightly lighter dry brush, picking out some of those extremities. That's as far as you need to go really if you want to for all the black details and the dark tones. And it's the same for the lady with the brown or anyone with leather work. You can just get a slightly lighter brown and then just do a slight dusting over those edges as well. Again, that's most of those leather work bits done. All I need to do now is pick out a couple of spot colours here and there, skin, robes, whatever, and then ready to move on. Speaking of spot colours, decided on both of these models, regardless which base coat I've used, whether that's like a black version for the leather or brown, I'm just going to use beret maroon and I'm just going to start picking out some colours on the model. So for her it's going to be a dress, maybe the sleeves, so get those picked out as well. And just take your time, work your way around, and if you need to you can always apply a second coat if it's looking a little bit too wishy-washy, because you are doing this over some dark colours. A little bit different to the speed paint version, but like I say, you've got a lot of that colour already picked out with the brown dry brush or the black dry brush. For our wizard or entertainer or poet, don't know, I'm just going to pick out a couple of red bits on him as well. So instead of it being a belt, I'm going to make it a bit more of a sash. Do his turban. Again, a couple of coats if you need to. And that's the thing as well, you can play around with colour. You don't have to like do everything completely all different colours. So this guy's having mostly black and red on the model, so it keeps it kind of uniformed but also visually pleasing as well at the same time. Then it's a matter of just picking out some skin, so I'm just going to get some Paratrooper tan. I always default to Paratrooper tan, I quite like it. Works really well over dark colours as well. It's got a fair amount of pigment in it, so it covers nicely. So I'm just going to work my way around, just doing a couple of base coats on her and the other guy, and then any other little colours that I might want to pick out. So for this fella, it's mainly red and black, but he's got like a skull and a book. So he's obviously doing his best version of Hamlet. So I'm just going to pick out the pages and the skull. And I thought on her flowers, I might use some speed paints on that. So I'm just going to get that base coated in that beige colour as well. Saves me having to sit there picking out green. Oh, and a hairband as well. Thought that'd be a nice little thing to pick out in like a lighter colour. Speaking of the speed paints, just going to get some Forest Sprite, apply that to all the areas that are like stems and leaves. Again, I'm not even going to highlight these, just going to use the speed paint as is. Make sure I pick everything out and then pick out the flowers as well. Again, it's entirely up to you how you want to go about doing it. I am going to do an all over wash as well, so that'll help tie it together. So all I'm going to do now is just get that Black Knight, apply it all over the model. Now I do it quite heavily. It is quite a thin finish when it's finished as well, so it's not like super neat, but it will pull, so you will need to soak up a little bit here and there. Usually I start from the top and then just let gravity do the work, but I just still move the wash around as well, getting some of those nooks and crannies, because it does need a little bit of help here and there. It's not going to always easily flow into those cracks. And if you do find it pooling a little bit at the bottom, just dry your brush off and then just soak up any of the excess and then just wipe it off onto some tissue or something like that. Then it's a matter of tidying up. So all I'm going to do here is get some of those base colours I've already used, so like the browns, the reds, the flesh, and I'm just going to re-tidy back up. This gives me the first stage of highlighting if I really wanted to. You don't even have to do this. You could have left the models after they dried from the shade, and especially if you're doing like 30-40 civilians, you might not want to go too mad. If you do want to put a little bit more love on the models, then tidying up is a really quick and easy way of doing that, and it's one of the most important steps, I think, before doing any edge highlighting. It's just a nice way of adding a little bit more punch to the colour if you need to, certainly if your wash is too dark. And again, by using that one colour of a shade, you're getting almost two different tones from it. Really, really cool and looks pretty effective too. We're then going to tie up the skin as well. Again, very similar to what we did with the red. We're just picking out those raised areas. Sometimes with the face itself, it's probably a little bit more tied up, almost feels like you're rebase coating it, but actually in some of those deeper recesses and nooks and crannies, you're still getting that darker tone from the shaded version. So don't stress it too much. You think, I'm just rebase coating here, this is weird. It's not, it will make an effect. Just pick out arms, knuckles, ankles. She's got some abs, this lady has. It's clearly all that bending down, picking up flowers from the meadow. It's tough work on a hot summer's day. Then with the pages, I'm just going to do a couple of little stripes. It's a really quick and easy way of making it look like there's words on the page. So I just do like little intermittent stripes all the way down. And then if I really wanted to, I could use that uniform grey that I dry brushed over the black as the lighter highlight, and just pick out some of the edges, some of the extremities, making it a little bit more tattered looking, especially with my jaggedy highlights. It just looks like old batter cloth, because I don't think they've got particularly great looking clothing, these civilians. Even if he's an entertainer and may have a little bit more coin, it's still going to be a little bit threadbare, I reckon. And also do the same thing for the leather dress or dress cover, like an apron maybe, and also the same for a tunic, petticoat. Don't actually know the technical term for this. I'd call it a top. Don't think it's a bra, because it's on the outside, right? Ladies in the chat, let me know what it's called. Or dudes, if you know. I don't really care. Just someone tell me. I'd say it's a petticoat, right? Or do some scratches. I always like doing little bits of scratches as well if I'm doing like leather work. Again, this is not something you have to do. It's just the next step. Just adds a little bit more love to the model if you feel that you've got the time to do it. And I'm just going to get some pure red for any red details, and then just give that a little highlight as well. So that is after the tidy up stage. That is just for one little final highlight, because the only colour I really care about here is everything else has been dry brushed, base coated, washed, and that's cool. But I just want one colour to punch out a little bit more. So for me, it's going to be the red, because that's going to be the standout colour, I think, on this guy. The camouflage or distraction that I like to do on models, which takes your eyes away from other details that may not be painted as well. And there we are, we have a bunch of civilians painted and ready for Traitors Toll. Now, these have had obviously different undercoats. Some have been lighter, some have been darker, but when they're all together, it doesn't really matter. They just look like a nice collection of civilians to use in your games of Traitors Toll. And you know what? Not even Traitors Toll. You could just use the civilians to make a nice little bit of extra narrative to your war games. So you could have like people going around about their daily jobs in the corners whilst the battle rages in the middle. So it adds a bit of life, and I really like that. So civilians from Traitors Toll, even if you're not interested in the game, it's just a really good set for doing lots of cool like conversions, kit bashes, loads of open hands doing stuff. And if you really do like the idea of like going mad, making like cool looking characters, if you're doing like Oblivion games like I want to do, then you've got all these to add to that. You've got like the guards where you can mix and match those. So like the peasant levy, the foot sergeants, the chivalric knights, mixing all those together, getting your Frostgrave stuff as well. You can make so many different varieties and styles of civilian and guard. But as always, a massive thank you for watching. Big thank you to my patrons. I love you all for supporting me this long. And, you know, it's really nice that I get this opportunity to talk about games that I'm really into or really like and invested in. And also it's really good just to try games that I might not necessarily have normally tried, because actually Traitors Toll was on my peripherals because I was kind of looking at 0200 hours, but it wasn't until a fair few of my patrons were like, you need to try Traitors Toll, Peach. You need to talk about it. Want to know about it. Tell us about it. Tell us about it. Me and my boy Charlie, we're probably going to have a go at this because we played a game recently called Harefoot Jousting by Joe. He really loved that. He's really into like playing these like fun little fast skirmish games. So I will be doing a little video at some point, not yet, about Harefoot Jousting, and it was good. I really enjoyed that. But Charlie wants to do some guards now. He wants to arrest some civilians. I think he wants to arrest baddie civilians. I hope, or he's just going to arrest all the civilians. I guess if you arrest all of them, you can put them all in jail and then find out who the suspect is later. But it doesn't really help with trade, Charlie. Oh well, that's something we can talk about. Anyway, right, I'm gonna go and finish painting some guards and some more civilians, because it's really good having fun painting random civilians. I love it.